Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UN's horizon watching the stars drift by through the main screen. The year was 2387 and humanity had spread across 12 star systems, building new homes among the planets. Jake had been exploring space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like what appeared on his sensors that morning. The readings showed massive ships coming out of hyperspace near Alpha Centauri. These vessels were larger than anything humans had ever built, and their design was completely alien. Jake ordered his crew to move closer for a better look while sending messages on all frequencies, hoping to make peaceful contact. Dr. Lisa Carter was working at the Alpha Centauri research station when the alien ships appeared. She had spent her whole life studying the possibility of other intelligent life, and now that dream was coming true. The station housed 50,000 civilians, including scientists, miners, and their families. Lisa watched through the observation deck as the alien fleet positioned itself around their small colony. The alien ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. They looked like massive insects made of metal with wings that crackled with energy. Each ship was 3 times larger than the biggest human warship, and there were hundreds of them. Lisa tried to count them but gave up when she reached 200. Jake received a response to his peaceful greeting, but it was not what he expected. The alien message was transmitted in perfect English, which meant they had been watching humanity for some time. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking words that would haunt Jake for the rest of his life. War Prime Zethkar of the Valkyrie Empire spoke to all human ships and stations in the system. His message was simple and brutal. Humanity was occupying worlds that belonged to the Empire. Humans were primitive creatures who had no right to colonize space. The Empire had conquered 3 galaxies over thousands of years, and they would not allow insects like humans to spread any further. Lisa felt her heart stop as she heard the alien ultimatum. The humans had 7 days to abandon all their colonies and return to Earth. Any human found in space after that deadline would be killed. The Empire would take control of all human worlds and use them for their own purposes. There would be no negotiation and no mercy. Admiral Ryan Hayes received the transmission at Earth Defense Command and immediately called an emergency meeting. Earth's military leaders gathered in the war room to discuss their options. The human fleet consisted of 300 ships designed for exploration and light combat. They had never fought a real war against an advanced alien civilization. Jake tried to maintain diplomatic contact with the Valkyrie, but their responses grew more hostile. They referred to humans as vermin and parasites that needed to be exterminated. The aliens had studied human history and found them weak and divided by wars among themselves. The Empire had defeated species far more advanced than humanity. On the 7th day, Lisa was conducting routine research when alarms began screaming throughout the station. She ran to the command center where technicians were reporting massive energy readings from the alien fleet. The Valkyrie ships were powering up weapons that registered beyond anything inhuman technology. Jake watched in horror as the first Valkyrie attack began. Beams of pure energy struck the Alpha Centauri station and tore through its shields like paper. The station exploded in sections as civilians tried desperately to reach escape pods. Most of the pods were destroyed before they could launch. Those that did escape were hunted down by smaller alien fighters. Lisa found herself trapped in a collapsing section of the station. Emergency power was failing and life support was shutting down. She managed to reach an escape pod just as her section exploded behind her. The pod launched automatically and began transmitting a distress signal that Jake's ship detected. The UNS Horizon rescued Lisa, but she was the only survivor they could find. 50,000 people had been murdered in less than an hour. The Valkyrie fleet departed as quickly as they had arrived, leaving nothing but debris and radiation behind. Jake set course for Earth, carrying the sole witness to humanity's first contact with alien life. During the long journey home, Lisa reviewed the sensor data and recordings from the attack. The alien technology was centuries ahead of human science. Their ships moved faster than anything humans could build, and their weapons could destroy a space station in minutes. The Empire had shown no interest in diplomacy or negotiation. They saw humans as nothing more than pests to be eliminated. Admiral Hayes met Jake's ship when it arrived at Earth. Lisa was taken to Defense Command where she testified before the military leadership about what she had witnessed. The recordings of the attack were broadcast across all human colonies. For the first time in centuries, humanity faced the possibility of complete extinction. The Valkyrie message had been clear. Humanity had been judged and found unworthy of existence. The Empire would return to finish what they had started. Earth's military began immediate preparations for a war they could not possibly win against an enemy that saw them as nothing more than insects to be crushed under their technological superiority. The Valkyrie kept their promise of destruction. Exactly 7 weeks after the Alpha Centauri massacre, massive alien fleets appeared simultaneously at all 12 remaining human colony worlds. The attacks were coordinated perfectly, showing the Empire's military precision and their complete understanding of human space. Captain Amy Foster commanded the defense fleet at New Terra when the alien dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace. Her 20 ships looked like toys compared to the Valkyrie, war machines that filled the sky above the planet. Amy had fought pirates and smugglers, but nothing had prepared her for weapons that could punch through starship armor like it was paper. The human colonists on New Terra watched from their cities as the space battle began above them. Amy's ships fought bravely, launching everything they had at the alien fleet. Human missiles exploded harmlessly against Valkyrie shields while their return fire tore through human vessels in seconds. One by one, Amy's ships were destroyed until only her flagship remained. Kate Miller worked as the civilian administrator for New Terra's 3 million colonists. When the orbital battle was lost, she began organizing emergency evacuations from the major cities. The transport ships were old and slow, but they were the only way to get people away from what was coming next. Colonel Don Wright defended the mining colony at Kepler Station with just 6 patrol boats against a Valkyrie battle group. His ships were designed for asteroid mining, not warfare, but Don and his crews fought anyway. They used mining charges as improvised weapons and rammed damaged ships into alien vessels. All 6 boats were destroyed, but they managed to damage one Valkyrie cruiser before the end. The first Valkyrie ground troops landed on New Terra. While Kate was still evacuating civilians from the capital city, the alien soldiers were tall and insect-like, wearing powered armor that made them nearly invulnerable to human weapons. They moved through the streets, killing everything that moved, whether it was armed or not. Kate watched from her transport ship as the aliens began their systematic destruction of human civilization. They used energy weapons to reduce entire city blocks to glass and metal. Families running for shelter were cut down in the streets. Children hiding in schools were hunted down and murdered. The Valkyrie called it pest control. Amy's damaged flagship crashed into New Terra's northern continent after the last of her crew was killed. She had managed to ram one alien destroyer during the battle, but it was a meaningless victory. The Valkyrie fleet had lost 1 ship out of hundreds, while the human defense force was completely destroyed. Admiral Hayes received reports of similar massacres from every human colony. Kepler Station was gone, Vega Prime was burning. The agricultural world of Ceres had been turned into radioactive wasteland. 11 colonies with a combined population of 200 million people were being systematically exterminated by alien forces. The siege of Luna Base became humanity's last stand outside of Earth itself. Captain Steve Rodriguez commanded the Moon's defense garrison of 300 Marines and naval personnel. The base was built inside an old mining complex with heavy armor and shield generators, but it was never designed to hold off a full alien invasion force. Steve's defenders fought for 6 days against overwhelming odds. The Valkyrie landed thousands of troops on the lunar surface and began grinding their way through the base's outer defenses. Human soldiers used every weapon they could find, including mining equipment and improvised explosives, to slow the alien advance. The communications room at Luna Base sent constant updates to Earth about the battle. Steve's voice remained calm even as alien forces broke through the main defensive line. His final transmission was heard across the solar system as Valkyrie troops reached the command center where the last humans were making their stand. Kate's transport ship limped toward Earth carrying refugees from New Terra. She had managed to save 30,000 people, but 3 million others had been left behind to die. The lucky ones were killed quickly by energy weapons. Others were captured alive for purposes that Kate did not want to imagine. Dr. Lisa Carter worked frantically at Earth Defense Command, analyzing the Valkyrie technology and tactics. Every battle provided new data about alien capabilities, but the information was always the same. Human weapons were useless against their shields. Human ships were too slow to escape their hunters. Human colonies were defenseless against their overwhelming firepower. By the end of the second month, 11 of humanity's 12 colonies were smoking ruins populated only by the dead. Millions of humans had been slaughtered in what the aliens called routine cleaning operations. The Valkyrie had demonstrated their technological superiority and their complete lack of mercy toward lesser species. War Prime Zethkar broadcast his victory message across human space. His voice was filled with satisfaction as he described the fate that awaited the rest of humanity. Earth would be the final target, and its 8 billion inhabitants would join their colonial brothers and sisters in death. The human species would serve as an example to any other primitive race that dared to expand beyond their home system. Admiral Hayes stood in the ruins of Luna Base after the Valkyrie forces withdrew. The bodies of Steve Rodriguez and his defenders were arranged in neat rows by the aliens as a final insult. 300 brave humans had died buying Earth a few extra days to prepare for the inevitable final battle. The surviving human ships gathered at Earth for the last defense of their homeworld. Less than 100 vessels remained operational out of the 300 that had existed before the war began. Most were damaged and low on ammunition. The crews were exhausted and demoralized by the string of defeats they had suffered. Kate Miller addressed the Earth Defense Council about what she had witnessed on New Terra. The aliens showed no interest in taking prisoners or negotiating surrender. They killed humans for the same reason that humans killed insects, because they saw no value in allowing them to live. Humanity faced complete extinction at the hands of a species that viewed them as nothing more than an infestation to be eliminated. The destruction of humanity's colonies awakened something deep and primitive within the human species. For thousands of years, humans had survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and countless wars that had nearly driven them to extinction. What the Valkyrie mistook for weakness was simply humanity at peace. The aliens had made a fatal error by threatening the survival of the entire human race. Dr. Alan Brooks worked in the secret laboratories buried deep beneath Colorado's mountains. Project Hellfire had been humanity's most classified weapons, program designed for conflicts that conventional forces could not win. Alan had spent 20 years developing weapons that violated every treaty humanity had ever signed, because sometimes survival required abandoning civilized behavior. Commander Beth Taylor received new orders from Admiral Hayes that changed everything about how humans would fight this war. Her ship, the Ian's Ghost, was equipped with experimental cloaking technology that made it invisible to most sensors. Beth would lead the first of humanity's hunter-killer operations, designed to teach the aliens that humans could be predators too. The Valkyrie began to notice disturbing changes in human behavior after their victory celebrations ended. Survivors from the destroyed colonies did not flee to safety as expected. Instead, they organized resistance cells that attacked alien occupation forces with primitive weapons and improvised explosives. Even civilian miners and farmers fought with a savage intensity that shocked veteran Valkyrie soldiers. Captain Rick Stone commanded a salvage vessel that was secretly modified with hidden weapons and armor. His crew pretended to search for survivors in the ruins of Kepler Station while actually studying alien technology and tactics. When Valkyrie patrols investigated the wreckage, Rick's ship would attack without warning, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The interrogation centers on occupied worlds became scenes of horror for the Valkyrie intelligence officers. Captured humans refused to break under torture that had worked on dozens of other species. Instead of providing useful information, the prisoners gave false data that led alien forces into carefully planned ambushes. Some humans bit off their own tongues rather than risk revealing anything to their captors. Dr. Alan Brooks made his first breakthrough when he successfully reverse-engineered a Valkyrie energy shield generator. The technology was centuries ahead of human science, but Alan found ways to modify it using principles that the aliens had never considered. Humans had always been better at finding creative solutions to impossible problems. Beth Taylor's first mission took her ghost ship deep into Valkyrie-controlled space where she targeted an alien supply convoy. The attack lasted less than 5 minutes, but when it was over, 6 Valkyrie freighters were burning wrecks drifting in space. Beth's ship vanished before the escort vessels could even locate her position. Admiral Hayes met with Earth's remaining political leaders to explain humanity's new strategy. They would not fight the Empire's kind of war with formal battles and honorable tactics. Instead, they would fight humanity's kind of war using every dirty trick and savage method their species had developed over millions of years of survival. The Valkyrie War Prime received increasingly disturbing reports from his occupation forces. Human resistance fighters were using tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They targeted command personnel instead of common soldiers. They poisoned water supplies and sabotaged life support systems. They showed no respect for the traditional boundaries between military and civilian targets. Kate Miller escaped from New Terra aboard a refugee transport, but she did not head for Earth as the aliens expected. Instead, she led her ship to a hidden asteroid base where human engineers were building something new. The refugees included some of humanity's best scientists and technicians, who had been thought killed in the colony attacks. Dr. Lisa Carter worked with a team of psychologists to develop new weapons designed to attack alien minds rather than their bodies. The Valkyrie had conquered other species through superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that understood the power of fear and demoralization. Humans had been scaring each other with stories and propaganda for thousands of years. Rick Stone's successful hit-and-run attacks inspired other human crews to abandon conventional tactics. Merchant vessels were secretly armed with concealed weapons. Mining ships were loaded with nuclear charges that could destroy entire alien bases. Even civilian transports became potential threats that the Valkyrie could not safely ignore. The first major victory came when Beth Taylor's Ghost Fleet attacked a Valkyrie command ship during what the aliens thought was a secure conference. 6 cloaked human vessels materialized around the alien dreadnought and opened fire at point-blank range. The command ship exploded along with 12 of the Empire's most experienced generals. Alan Brooks completed the first prototype of humanity's new Reaper-class warship in the hidden Colorado facilities. The vessel combined stolen alien technology with human innovations that the Empire had never imagined. It was designed for one purpose: killing aliens as efficiently as possible without regard for honor or military tradition. The Valkyrie began experiencing something they had not felt in centuries: fear. Their patrols started reporting ghost ships that appeared from nowhere to attack and then vanished. Supply convoys required massive escorts that tied up military resources. Even high-ranking officers started looking over their shoulders, wondering when the invisible humans would strike next. War-Prime Zethkar realized that his easy conquest of humanity was becoming a nightmare. The Empire had crushed dozens of species, but none had responded to defeat by becoming more dangerous instead of less. The humans were not following the rules of civilized warfare that had governed galactic conflicts for millennia. Admiral Hayes stood in the command center of humanity's new secret base built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Around him worked the survivors of humanity's colonies along with Earth's best military minds. They were planning operations that would have been unthinkable before the war began. The aliens had wanted to exterminate humanity, but instead they had taught humans how to become exterminators. The message went out to every surviving human in the galaxy through encrypted channels that the Valkyrie could not break. There would be no surrender and no mercy. Every human who died would take 10 aliens with them. Every ship destroyed would cost the Empire a fleet. The Valkyrie had started this war by choosing genocide. Humanity would finish it the same way. Captain Rick Stone took command of humanity's first operational Reaper-class warship as it emerged from the secret construction yards. The vessel looked nothing like traditional human ships, with its angular black hull designed to absorb sensor waves and weapons arranged for maximum killing efficiency. This was not a ship built for exploration or defense, but for hunting and destroying alien life. The Battle of Proxima Station marked a turning point in humanity's war against the Valkyrie Empire. Commander Julia Martinez led a squadron of 6 Reaper ships against what the aliens thought was an impregnable fortress. The station controlled the main hyperspace route between Valkyrie territory and the occupied human colonies, making it a critical target. Julia's ships approached Proxima Station using full stealth mode, remaining invisible until they were close enough to target specific sections of the alien structure. The Valkyrie defenders never saw the attack coming. Human weapons designed specifically to penetrate alien shields tore through the station's defenses like they were made of paper instead of advanced energy barriers. The alien commander at Proxima Station sent desperate messages to his superiors. As human ships materialized around his position, the Reaper vessels moved unlike anything the Valkyrie had encountered before, using sudden bursts of speed and impossible maneuvers that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Rick Stone's ship alone destroyed 3 alien cruisers in the first 5 minutes of combat. War Prime Zethkar received the distress calls from Proxima Station, but his relief fleet arrived too late to help. They found the massive alien fortress reduced to burning wreckage floating in space. Hundreds of Valkyrie soldiers and technicians were dead, while the human attack force had vanished without leaving any trace of their presence. For the first time in the war, Valkyrie survivors fled in terror from a human attack. The few aliens who escaped Proxima Station carried stories of ghost ships that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. They spoke of human weapons that seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage, and human tactics that showed no regard for the traditional rules of space warfare. Dr. Nancy Ford led humanity's psychological warfare division from a hidden base in the asteroid belt. Her team monitored alien communications and began broadcasting carefully crafted messages designed to spread fear and confusion throughout the Valkyrie Empire. The aliens learned that their supposedly inferior enemies had been studying their language and culture for months. The intercepted Valkyrie transmissions revealed growing panic within the Empire's military command. Reports of human attacks were spreading faster than the aliens could suppress them. Worse still, other species conquered by the Valkyrie began hearing stories of how their supposedly invincible masters were being systematically hunted and killed by primitive humans. Julia Martinez received new orders to target Valkyrie supply lines throughout their occupied territory. Her squadron split into individual ships that struck simultaneously at dozens of alien convoys and outposts. The coordinated attacks destroyed months of accumulated supplies and forced the Empire to divert massive resources to protecting their logistics network. Rick Stone's hunting expeditions became legendary among both human and alien forces. His ship, the Un's Predator, would appear in Valkyrie-controlled systems long enough to destroy key targets, then vanish before the aliens could respond. Entire alien squadrons were dispatched to hunt for Stone's ship, but they never found anything except the wreckage he left behind. The Valkyrie began experiencing something their species had not known for thousands of years: genuine fear of an enemy. Their patrol ships started traveling in large groups for protection. Supply convoys required escorts larger than the cargo they were protecting. Even routine communications became dangerous as human intercept teams tracked and eliminated alien commanders. Dr. Alan Brooks completed work on humanity's most terrible weapon, the Cascade system, designed to destroy entire planets rather than just their defenders. The technology violated every treaty humanity had ever signed, but those agreements had been made with the assumption that humans would always fight other humans who shared similar moral limitations. Admiral Hayes authorized the first use of planet-killing weapons against the Valkyrie colony world that served as a major military base. The alien planet had been home to 50 million Valkyrie civilians, but it also housed the shipyards that built the dreadnoughts used to destroy human colonies. Hayes felt no guilt about what happened next. The Cascade weapon struck the Valkyrie, Homeworld's moon, first as a demonstration of human capabilities. The small celestial body simply ceased to exist, reduced to cosmic dust by energies that the aliens had never imagined possible. The message sent with the weapon was simple: surrender immediately or watch your species burn. Nancy Ford's broadcasts began reaching the enslaved species throughout Valkyrie territory. They learned that the supposedly invincible empire was losing ships and worlds to human forces. Rebellions began sprouting on dozens of planets as subject races realized their masters could be defeated and killed just like any other life form. Julia Martinez led the assault on the Valkyrie fleet base at Volf Station, where the aliens kept their reserve forces. The human attack lasted only 3 hours, but when it ended, the Empire had lost over 200 warships along with the trained crews needed to operate them. The aliens were learning that humans did not take prisoners. The Valkyrie War Prime made his first attempt to negotiate with human forces through intermediaries from neutral species. His message offered to withdraw from all human territory in exchange for an end to the attacks. The human response was delivered by one of Rick Stone's missiles that destroyed the alien flagship where the peace offer had originated. Kate Miller worked with refugee communities throughout human space to organize supply networks for the ghost fleets. Civilian volunteers risked their lives to establish hidden bases where human warships could rearm and refuel between hunting expeditions. The entire surviving human population had become part of the war effort. War Prime Zethkar realized too late that humanity did not fight wars according to the civilized rules that governed conflicts between advanced species. Humans targeted civilians as readily as soldiers. They destroyed entire worlds rather than just conquering them. They showed the same mercy toward defeated enemies that the Valkyrie had shown at Alpha Centauri, which was none at all. The tide of war had turned completely. Valkyrie forces began withdrawing from the outer territories as human hunter-killer groups made their positions untenable. The empire that had conquered 3 galaxies was being systematically dismantled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Vermin, the Valkyrie had taught humanity the true meaning of total war, and now they were learning the lesson themselves. The war entered its final genocidal phase as humanity embraced the terrible logic of total extinction. Admiral Tony Clark commanded the newly formed Extinction fleet, carrying weapons designed for one purpose: sterilizing entire worlds so thoroughly that nothing could ever live on them again. The human military had abandoned all pretense of civilized warfare and adopted the same methods the Valkyrie had used against human colonies. The Valkyrie homeworld of Zethros had been considered impregnable for over 1,000 years. Massive orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Energy shields covered the world's surface, protecting 50 billion alien civilians and the Empire's most important government and military installations. Commander Helen Burke led the human ground assault force that would capture the Valkyrie leadership alive. Her soldiers were volunteers who had lost family members in the alien attacks on human colonies. They wore powered armor reverse-engineered from captured Valkyrie equipment, but modified with human innovations that made them faster and deadlier than the original design. Rick Stone's ship, the UN's Predator, fired the first shot of the battle for Zethros, using a new type of weapon that turned the planet's own defensive systems against itself. The orbital platforms began exploding in chain reactions as their power cores overloaded. Within minutes, the supposedly impenetrable defenses were reduced to burning wreckage falling toward the planet's surface. Tony Clark's planet-killer weapons punched through the weakened orbital defenses and struck the Valkyrie homeworld with the force of artificial suns. Entire continents disappeared in waves of nuclear fire that turned rock into glass and oceans into steam. The beautiful blue-green world that had been the center of a galactic empire became a glowing ball of radiation and death. War Prime Zethkar watched from his command bunker as his homeworld died around him. The human weapons were beyond anything his scientists had imagined possible. They did not merely destroy buildings and military targets, but sterilized the very ground itself. ensuring that nothing could ever grow or live there again. This was extinction on a scale that even the Empire had never attempted. Helen Burke's assault troops fought their way through the underground complexes beneath the Valkyrie capital city. The alien defenders had never faced human soldiers in close combat and were shocked by their savagery and determination. Humans fought with a personal hatred that went beyond military duty, driving them to kill even when they were badly wounded. The liberation of the Empire's slave worlds began as soon as the Valkyrie homeworld started burning. Dozens of species that had been conquered centuries ago rose up against their alien masters. Human weapons and advisors reached the rebels through secret supply lines established by Commander Beth Taylor's Ghost Fleet operations. Julia Martinez commanded the human forces that systematically hunted down every Valkyrie fleet in known space. The aliens tried to flee to distant galaxies, but humanity's long-range hunter groups pursued them across the void. There would be no escape and no mercy for the species that had chosen to exterminate humanity rather than coexist with them. Tony Clark received orders to begin sterilizing every world that had supported the Valkyrie war effort. The human leadership had decided that any species or planet that had aided in the attempted genocide of humanity would share the same fate as their masters. This was not conquest but complete elimination of potential threats. Kate Miller worked with the diplomatic corps to coordinate with the newly liberated species throughout former Valkyrie territory. Many of these races offered to help hunt down the remaining aliens in exchange for human protection against future threats. They had learned that humanity was far more dangerous as an enemy than the Empire had ever been. Dr. Nancy Ford's psychological warfare broadcasts reached the surviving Valkyrie forces scattered across 3 galaxies. The messages were simple and terrifying. Humanity would never stop hunting them. Every alien who had participated in the attack on human colonies would be found and killed. Their species had chosen extinction and humanity would grant their wish. Helen Burke finally cornered War Prime Zethkar in the deepest bunker beneath the ruined Valkyrie capital. The alien leader was alone, surrounded by the bodies of his guards, who had died trying to protect him. His once proud species lay in ruins around him while human forces controlled what remained of his empire. Admiral Hayes arrived on Zethros to personally oversee the capture of the alien leadership. The planet's surface was a radioactive wasteland that would remain uninhabitable for thousands of years. The Valkyrie civilization that had dominated 3 galaxies for millennia had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in underground shelters. Zethkar faced Hayes in the ruins of his throne room while human soldiers stood guard around them. The alien spoke in a whisper, asking why humanity had chosen such complete destruction instead of simply defeating the Empire and taking their territory. He claimed that the Valkyrie had only wanted human worlds, not the extermination of the entire species. Hayes responded with cold fury, explaining that the aliens had declared total war on humanity when they chose genocide at Alpha Centauri. The Valkyrie had shown no mercy to human civilians, including children, and had announced their intention to exterminate the entire human race. They had taught humanity what extinction meant, and now they were learning the lesson themselves. The final Valkyrie fleets attempted a desperate last stand at the edge of known space, but Rick Stone's hunter groups had been tracking them for months. The aliens found themselves surrounded by human ships that had been waiting for them to gather in one place. The battle lasted only hours before the last major Valkyrie force was destroyed. Tony Clark's Extinction fleet completed its work by sterilizing the last Valkyrie colony worlds. Dozens of planets that had once housed thriving alien civilizations became dead rocks orbiting their stars. The few aliens who managed to escape did so in small ships with limited supplies and no safe harbor anywhere in the known galaxy. Dr. Allen Brooks supervised the final phase of the extermination campaign using weapons that could track individual Valkyrie through their genetic signatures. Every alien who had served in their military or government during the war against humanity was marked for death. Human hunter teams pursued them across space using technology that made hiding impossible. Helen Burke led the team that executed War Prime Zethkar and the other captured Valkyrie leaders in the ruins of their capital city. The aliens were given the same trial and mercy they had shown to human civilians, which was none at all. Their deaths marked the end of an empire that had ruled 3 galaxies, but had made the fatal mistake of threatening humanity's survival. The Valkyrie Empire ceased to exist exactly 10 years after they had first contacted humanity. Their homeworld was a radioactive tomb. Their fleets were scattered atoms in space. Their colonies were sterilized wastelands where nothing would ever live again. The species that had chosen to exterminate humanity had achieved their own extinction instead. 10 years after first contact with the Valkyrie Empire, humanity stood as the dominant military power in 3 galaxies. The species that had once faced extinction now controlled more territory than any civilization in recorded history. Earth's blue skies looked down on a world that had been forever changed by the war they had been forced to fight. President Carl Johnson addressed the United Colonies from the rebuilt capital of New Washington. The ceremony marked the official end of the Valkyrie War and the establishment of humanity's new role as protectors of the liberated worlds. 50 species that had been enslaved for centuries now lived under human protection, grateful for their freedom but also terrified of their liberators. Dr. Lisa Carter worked in the memorial gardens built where Alpha Centauri Research Station had once stood. She was old now, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much death and destruction. The memorial listed the names of every human killed in the war, along with a simple inscription that summarized humanity's hard-learned lesson about survival. The monument's words were carved in stone that would last forever. They wanted war, we gave them extinction. May we never have to do so again. Lisa touched the names of colleagues and friends who had died in the first alien attack. Their deaths had been avenged 1 billion times over, but the cost of that vengeance still haunted her dreams. Commander Jake Morrison now held the rank of Admiral of the Fleet, commanding humanity's vast armada of warships. His hair was white and his face was lined with scars from battles fought across 3 galaxies. The young explorer who had made first contact with the Valkyrie had become something his younger self would not have recognized. Reports reached Jake's headquarters about new alien signals detected at the edge of the galaxy. Long-range sensors had identified what appeared to be another spacefaring species approaching human territory. The initial communications suggested they were peaceful traders, interested in establishing diplomatic contact with the new galactic power. The response to these potential new allies was very different from humanity's first encounter with alien life. The ships that moved to make contact were Reaper-class destroyers armed with planet-killing weapons and crewed by veterans who had learned that peace was only possible when those who threatened it no longer existed. Kate Miller served as humanity's first ambassador to liberated worlds, coordinating with the dozens of species that had been freed from Valkyrie rule. Many of these races were grateful to humanity, but they were also careful never to give humans any reason to view them as threats. The stories of what happened to the Empire served as a permanent warning. Admiral Tony Clark commanded the border fleets that patrolled the edges of human space. Automated beacons broadcast warnings in every known alien language explaining that the region was under human protection. The message was polite, but the implied threat was clear. Any species that approached with hostile intent would share the fate of the Valkyrie. Dr. Nancy Ford continued her psychological warfare research, but now focused on preventing conflicts rather than winning them. Her broadcasts reached across the galaxies, carrying stories of human military capabilities and the complete destruction of any species foolish enough to threaten humanity's survival. Fear had become humanity's most effective diplomatic tool. Rick Stone retired from active military service but kept his ship, the Unzien's Predator, in case humanity ever needed his particular skills again. He had become a legend among both human and alien populations as the ghost who could appear anywhere to deliver death to humanity's enemies. His very existence served as a deterrent to potential threats. The new alien species sent peaceful messages as their ships approached human territory, but Jake Morrison was no longer the trusting explorer he had once been. Humanity had learned That the universe was full of species that saw other races as obstacles to be eliminated rather than partners to be welcomed, got Helen. Burke trained the next generation of human soldiers in facilities built on the former Valkyrie homeworld. The radioactive ruins served as a classroom where young humans learned what happened to species that threatened their survival. The lesson was simple but effective. Humanity tried peace once and it nearly cost them everything. President Johnson met with Earth's military leadership to discuss the approaching aliens. The unanimous decision was to treat any new contact as a potential threat until proven otherwise. Humanity would never again allow another species to achieve the element of surprise that the Valkyrie had enjoyed. Dr. Alan Brooks worked on new weapons, systems designed to fight enemies that humanity had not yet encountered. The research facilities beneath Colorado continued developing technologies that violated every treaty humans had ever signed with each other. Those agreements seemed quaint now in a universe where survival required the ability to commit genocide. Lisa Carter received visitors at the Memorial Gardens, including children who had been born after the war ended. She told them stories about the time before humanity became the galaxy's most feared species, when humans explored space with hope and wonder instead of weapons and suspicion. Those days seemed like ancient history now. The approaching alien fleet was met by Admiral Jake Morrison's task force at the edge of human space. The aliens called themselves the Harmony Collective and claimed to be peaceful merchants interested in trade agreements. Their ships were beautiful and their messages spoke of cooperation and mutual benefit. Jake listened to their diplomatic proposals, while surrounded by enough firepower to sterilize their entire homeworld if necessary. The aliens seemed genuinely peaceful, but humanity had learned that appearances could be deceiving. The Valkyrie had also seemed civilized until they chose to commit genocide. Carl Johnson's final speech as president summarized humanity's transformation over the past decade. They had begun as explorers and dreamers spreading across the stars with hope for a better future. The universe had taught them that survival required becoming something darker, but they had learned the lesson well. The automated beacons continued, broadcasting their warnings to any species that might be listening in the depths of space. This region is under the protection of the Human Colonial Union. We are a peaceful species, but we have been taught that peace can only exist when those who would destroy it are extinct. Approach with friendship or do not approach at all. Kate Miller watched the sunset from her office on New Terra, which had been rebuilt as a monument to human resilience. The planet that had once been devastated by alien invaders now served as the capital of the liberated worlds. 3 million humans had died here, but their sacrifice had led to the freedom of 50 billion aliens. Humanity had achieved their happy ending, but the price had been their innocence. They controlled 3 galaxies and were respected and feared throughout known space. But the species that had once reached for the stars with open hands now held weapons capable of exterminating entire civilizations. They had learned to survive. By becoming the most efficient killers in the galaxy, the universe had taught humanity a harsh lesson about the nature of survival. Peace was not the natural state of intelligent life, but something that had to be enforced by those strong enough to destroy anyone who threatened it. Humanity had paid the price for that knowledge with the souls of an entire species, but they had learned it well.